Donkey of the Day.
Donkeys of the Day, ask Charlemagne.
I'm a Democrat, so being Donkey of the Day is a little bit of a mixed blessing.
So like a donkey. Hee-haw. Okay. Donkey of the Day.
I got a club, bitches.
Now, I've been called a lot in my 23 years, but Donkey of the Day is a new one.
Yes. Donkey of the Day for Friday, June 2nd goes to a man who is too fat for a fedora, Jason Whitlock. I told you all a couple weeks ago that I would not address Jason Whitlock anymore until he loses 200 pounds, and I'm serious about that, okay? Your Uncle Sharla already told you who and what this guy is. He's a sick, twisted house Negro, the white man's watchdog, who loves to bark and bite black people. And yesterday he was barking at one of his favorite subjects, LeBron James. Now, we all know LeBron James' house was vandalized this week. Someone spray painted racial slurs on his crib, and LeBron had this to say about it.
And I think back to Emmett Till's mom, actually. It's kind of one of the first things I thought of. And the reason that she had a open casket is because she wanted to show the world what her son went through as far as a hate crime and, being black in America. No matter how much money you have, no matter how famous you are, no matter how many people admire you, being black in America is tough.
Now, the man who is too fat for a fedora, Jason Whitlock, said this.
LeBron, to me here, is embracing his victimhood. This is not the racism that needs to be stamped out in America. This is an inconvenience for LeBron. Someone spray painting something on a millionaire's home.
He's not a victim in that situation?
Hell no.
He was
nothing.
victimized?
Well, it's nothing, Chris. It wasn't that big of a deal. If someone denies you an opportunity, you can't go to school here, you can't have this, you can't have that. That is the impact of racism.
Okay,
LeBron was inconvenienced, and racism affects the poor, the very wealthy. And for him to sit here and say, no matter where you are, it's tough being black. It ain't tough being LeBron James. It ain't tough being Oprah Winfrey. The wealthy have regardless of color, have a far better chance of overcoming whatever unfairness happens to them than people that are not wealthy. This man getting spray painted on his front door that he never saw, his staff cleaned up, it's an inconvenience. It's not racism. It's not being denied a job.
It is racism. They didn't spray paint jerk on this door.
He can speak out and say, you know what, this was terrible. Whoever these individuals were, it was stupid. But the people that really are impacted by this are the poor people who face discrimination.
What? Now, if I spray paint a fat ass in a fedora lives here on Jason Whitlock's pig pen, not only is it vandalism, not only is it a terrible inconvenience, it's also fat shaming. Yes, LeBron James is rich, and if someone spray paints the N-word on his mansion, that's racism. You know what? Let me shut up. I told you all that I'm not engaging with Jason Whitlock until he loses 200 pounds, but that doesn't mean I can't use my platform to let other people engage with him, because we can't let that kind of rhetoric just sit out there, because there's people out there who don't know any better, who believe the nonsense that comes out of Jason Whitlock's mouth. So I have my OG on the phone, someone who is way more smarter than me, someone I love to hear from, Mr. Michael Eric Dyson. Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I listen to Jason Whitlock. I mean, you all are brilliant and insightful, and you are equally capable as I am of responding, but let me bear that burden this morning. Jason Whitlock's argument tries to pin racism on its victim, not its perpetrator. So that if a Nazi, a skinhead, a white supremacist, or a Ku Klux Klan member happens to burn the house of a person making less than $14,000 for 5 people a year, then Mr. Whitlock would suggest that's racism. But if the person happens to make more than 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 million a year, then the intent of the Ku Klux Klanner is nullified by the economic status of the victim. How ludicrous that is, as Mike Tyson might say. That is as Mike Tyson might say, that's one of the most ludicrous arguments one might imagine. It is not the status of the person who is aimed at by the racist that makes the act racist. It is the intent of the perpetrator. And the intent of scribbling on the fence of or on the property of LeBron James signifies its racist intent. For that matter, Martin Luther King Jr. Being murdered in 1968 was not an act of racism by the litmus test of Jason Whitlock. Martin Luther King Jr. was born into the upper middle class, and even though he sought to undermine his own economic status by identifying with the masses of people. This man was making something like $200,000 or more in the early 60s and gave most of that money to the movement. But the fact is, he was earning in the top 1% of American economic reality at the time. Was Martin Luther King Jr.'s death not a result of an act of racism? Of course it was. Jason Whitlock is simply seeking to avoid the uncomfortable position of being a voice piece for those who have been locked out. Now, he claims that he is by saying, only if you're poor and black are you a victim of racism. There is some kind of racism you can only be subject to the more money you make. Jackie Robinson was a victim of racism as well. Mr. Whitlock, who is a sports writer, should know this. Jackie Robinson was not then a poor black American. He had been elevated into the elite of American enterprise and society. And as a result of being the first black player to play in the major league, he was a straight victim of it. So Jason Whitlock's litmus test for who is the victim of racism is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Word. Thank you, Brother Dyson. I really appreciate you this morning, man, for laying that game down quite flat.
So being racist does not mean that people cannot be racist against you.
Of course not. I mean,
exactly.
LeBron James, is a person who is one of the richest guys out there, but still has been articulate about his views on race. Barack Obama, the last time I checked, a very rich man now, and certainly even when he was in the presidency, was a victim of repeated attempts to deny the legitimacy of his personality, of his being an American citizen. Donald Trump spent most of his time before becoming president in the last several years denying that Barack Obama was born in America. So Jason Whitlock misses the entire ship here, and it's an attempt to placate and satisfy white people's conscience and soothe them to believe that only those who are the very poorest are the victims of the racial animus that is continually unleashed in American society. And Jason Whitlock is a mouthpiece through a ventriloquist act for white supremacy itself.
And you know what else, man? It's funny that he used Oprah as an example, because Oprah herself has said she's been confronted with racism ever so often. She even cited specific examples that she experienced in Chicago and New York.
I saw a sweater in the window. This was on Madison Avenue. And they wouldn't open the door. So we went across the street. We called to say, "Are you open?" "Yes, we're open." Just cross the street. Didn't let us in. We had seen on the way across the street these two white women go in the store. And suddenly it dawns on the both of us, I think we're having a racist moment. And it was. I later called back to the store after flying back. This was on Madison Avenue. And asking the person, well, I was by your store today and I wasn't let in. And they said that they had been robbed by two black people the week before and they were afraid to open the door. I said, I was coming in to buy this sweater. And they said, well, we'd like to give you the sweater for free. And I go, keep the sweater.
So I don't know what the hell Jason Whitlock talking about.
Chicago, New York, and Paris in the Hermes store when they refused to let her in until they found out who she was.
Exactly.
So why are you using Oprah Winfrey, who acknowledges that regardless of your status and your race, that's what racism does. And that's what Jason Whitlock is missing here. Racism doesn't care who you are. That's its danger. You can be the highest Negro with the highest IQ, with the greatest amount of money. It doesn't matter. You're still a nigger in the eyes of the perpetrator of white supremacy. That's why we have to be vigilant and accounting for it. And those who have more money and a greater voice piece and a greater platform must use that platform to fight against something that can happen to anybody at any time. Bill Cosby's son, when he was murdered, did not get exempt because he was the son of a multimillionaire. He was another nigger on the side of the road with a broken down car who was subject to the vicious, racist animus of the man who murdered him.
Thank you, Mr. Michael Eric Dyson. I really appreciate you this morning, my brother.
Love y'all. Always glad to be on whenever I can. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Please give the fat ass in the fedora, Jason Whitlock, the biggest hee-haw, please. And have nothing less to say. Just use that as a moment to teach. That's all.
The Breakfast Club.